I want to tell you a story about murder and racism and the best case of poetic justice that I've ever heard. This is a typical South African domestic worker. When I was a kid during apartheid, we called them maids, and virtually every white South African family had a maid who lived with them and performed chores on a daily basis: washing, cooking, cleaning. It was so commonplace to have a maid that they became virtually invisible to us, and we never thought of them as real three-dimensional human beings. In 1993, this man, Chris Hani, the leader of South Africa's Communist Party, was shot dead as he arrived home. I still remember seeing a picture of his body on the front of the Star newspaper in Johannesburg and how shocking it was to me. He was the first person I had been familiar with in life, who I had seen on television, who I had heard speaking, and who I had then seen dead, murdered because of his political beliefs. The police soon arrested this man, Janusz Wałęsa, a Polish immigrant to South Africa and a far-right extremist who was hoping to trigger a race war. But Janusz Wałęsa had not been working alone. Wałęsa was working with this man, Clive Derby-Lewis. He was actually a member of parliament in the opposition Conservative Party, and his aim was, by killing Hani, to undermine communist support for the African National Congress and steer South Africa away from the end of apartheid. His plan obviously would ultimately fail because the year after Hani's assassination, Nelson Mandela would be elected president. Clive Derby-Lewis and Janusz Wałęsa both denied their involvement in Chris Hani's assassination, and for a while it looked like they would get away with it. Until one day, at their trial, the prosecution announced that they had a star witness. Out came Elizabeth Moshwani, Clive Derby-Lewis's maid. I haven't been able to find a picture of Elizabeth Moshwani anywhere on the internet, so I'm going to use this picture of a typical South African domestic worker, because in a sense, what Elizabeth Moshwani did next stands for all domestic workers who were seen as invisible during apartheid. Elizabeth Moshwani recounted in vivid detail how Clive Derby-Lewis and Janusz Wałęsa had plotted the assassination of Chris Hani. While she was bringing them cups of tea and cleaning the furniture and vacuuming around them, they assumed that she was invisible, that she wasn't able to listen or see or think. But the whole time Elizabeth Moshwani knew what they were up to, and she remembered everything. It was her testimony that blew the case wide open and secured convictions for the men who had killed Chris Hani. When Elizabeth Moshwani's testimony was challenged by a prosecution lawyer, she replied, "I was there, you weren't, how would you know?" This story contains a powerful lesson for all of us. It is often people who we believe are invisible who make the best witnesses of history. Because they're outsiders, they can view things more objectively. Elizabeth Moshwani is one of the unsung heroes of South African history, and I wanted you to know her story.